My beloved child. Do not move past this moment too quickly, because something has shifted in a place you cannot see. Something was revealed, and the person whose heart has been quietly connected to yours was not prepared for the weight of it. They thought they understood you. They thought they knew why you became careful, why you learned to smile through certain silences, why there were moments when you seemed strong enough to carry everything without asking anyone to notice. But recently, they discovered that what they knew was only the surface. And when the deeper truth reached them, something inside them became deeply emotional. Not because they saw you as weak. Not because they pitied you. But because for the first time, they began to understand just how much you survived without the comfort, protection, reassurance, or companionship you deserved. Stay here, because what they learned was not a small detail. It changed the way they see your strength. It changed the way they remember your silence. It even changed the meaning of certain conversations they once had with you. There are things you said casually that now sound completely different in their mind. There were moments when you answered, "I'm okay," and they believed you. There were moments when you laughed, changed the subject, or acted as though something did not matter, and they never realized how much courage it took for you to make pain look ordinary. Now they are replaying those moments, and the more they remember, the more emotional they become, because one question keeps returning to them with greater force: how did you carry all of that alone and still remain someone capable of loving so deeply? Heaven has seen the parts of your journey that were never witnessed by the people around you. It saw the nights when you did not know what the next morning would feel like. It saw you sitting in silence, trying to gather yourself before anyone noticed that your heart was tired. It saw the responsibilities you accepted because there was no one else stepping forward. It saw the disappointments you processed without an audience. It saw the times you wanted someone to ask the right question, yet no one seemed to recognize what was hiding behind your eyes. And still, you kept going. You kept becoming. You kept showing kindness in places where your own heart had once been handled carelessly. That is the part your soulmate is beginning to understand now, and it has affected them more deeply than they expected. There is a difference between knowing someone has experienced hardship and suddenly understanding what that hardship actually cost them. Your soulmate has crossed that line. Before, they may have known fragments. A sentence here. A story there. A small reference to something difficult from your past. But those fragments never formed a complete picture. Something recently connected the pieces. It may have been a conversation, something they heard, something they discovered, something they finally understood after looking back, or even a truth that another person revealed without realizing how deeply it would affect them. Whatever opened that door, it did not close quietly. It left your soulmate thinking about you in a way they have not been able to shake. They began imagining moments they never witnessed. They imagined you facing situations where you had to become your own source of courage. They imagined you making decisions while frightened, exhausted, disappointed, or uncertain, yet continuing because stopping was not an option. They imagined what it must have felt like to look around and realize that the person you needed was not there. And suddenly, they felt something painful in their own heart. Not guilt for something they did not know, but a kind of aching regret that they could not somehow reach backward through time and stand beside the version of you who needed someone. This is where the story becomes more intense, because their emotions did not stop at sadness. Something stronger began rising underneath it. Admiration, respect, protectiveness, and a realization they may not yet know how to express. They started recognizing that some of the qualities they love about you were built in places where you had no choice but to become strong. Your independence came from moments when depending on someone else was not possible. Your sensitivity came from knowing what it feels like to be misunderstood. Your ability to notice when others are hurting came from all the times you wished someone would notice you. Your loyalty was shaped by knowing how painful inconsistency can feel. Your patience was not born because life was always gentle with you. It was born because you learned how to survive seasons that moved slower than your hope. And this realization unsettled them. Because they are beginning to understand that loving you is not only about enjoying the person you are today. It is about honoring everything it took for you to become this person. There are invisible chapters living inside you, and your soulmate has only just realized how sacred some of those chapters are. They may have once misunderstood your hesitation. They may have wondered why you sometimes need time before trusting completely, why you observe before opening up, why certain words matter to you more than others, why consistency catches your attention, or why disappearing without explanation can affect you more deeply than people assume. But what they learned has given those things context. Suddenly, what once looked complicated now looks completely understandable. There is a particular memory they cannot stop revisiting. It may seem insignificant to you, but to them it has become a doorway into everything they failed to see before. Perhaps it was a time you said something like, "I'm used to handling things myself." Perhaps you brushed aside an offer of help. Perhaps you apologized for needing reassurance when you had done nothing wrong. Perhaps you seemed surprised when someone remembered a small detail about you. Perhaps you became unusually quiet when someone showed you genuine care. Your soulmate remembers that moment now, and instead of seeing it the way they did before, they are asking themselves what must have happened for you to learn to expect so little. That question hit them harder than they expected. Because when someone truly cares for you, discovering that you became accustomed to surviving without tenderness can awaken something fierce in them. They begin wishing they could correct every moment when you were made to feel unimportant. They begin wanting to replace uncertainty with consistency, confusion with clarity, emotional distance with presence. And your soulmate is standing at the edge of that awakening now. They are realizing that you were never asking for too much. In many ways, you learned to ask for too little. There is something else you need to hear. Their emotional reaction was not dramatic on the outside. This may be why you have no idea it happened. They may not have cried in front of anyone. They may not have spoken your name out loud. They may have simply gone quiet. But silence can carry enormous weight when a person is suddenly processing something that changes how they see someone they care about. They withdrew into their thoughts because they did not know what to do with the realization. They felt their chest tighten. They felt memories returning. They felt certain assumptions collapsing. They felt a strange combination of sadness for what you endured and gratitude that somehow, after everything, you did not allow those experiences to turn your heart cold. And then came the thought that changed the entire emotional atmosphere. They began wondering whether you know how extraordinary that is. Not extraordinary because suffering itself is beautiful. It is not. There was nothing romantic about having to be strong when you deserved support. There was nothing poetic about feeling alone in moments when someone should have been beside you. But there is something remarkable about the fact that pain did not steal your capacity to care. You still love deeply. You still hope. You still recognize beauty. You still imagine a future different from the past. Your soulmate saw this contrast, and it overwhelmed them. They realized there are people who receive far more kindness than you once received and still give less kindness than you give. There are people who were protected from many of the things you had to face and yet carry less compassion. That truth made them look at you with a kind of reverence they were not expecting. They are beginning to understand why your energy feels different to them. It is not because you are perfect. It is because there is depth in you. There are places behind your smile that were earned. There is wisdom behind certain boundaries. There is meaning behind the way you protect your peace. Your soulmate is seeing that now. And once someone sees your depth clearly, it becomes difficult for them to return to a shallow understanding of you. But there is still more, because something they learned did not only make them emotional. It made them question themselves. They began asking whether they have ever unknowingly added weight to a heart that already carried too much. That question has stayed with them. They thought about moments when they were inconsistent. Moments when they hesitated. Moments when they gave mixed signals. Moments when they assumed you were strong enough not to care. Moments when they thought distance would not affect you because you seemed independent. And now they realize independence does not mean absence of feeling. Strength does not mean someone cannot be hurt. Patience does not mean someone should be kept waiting forever. Your soulmate has started examining their own behavior through an entirely new lens, and some of what they are seeing is uncomfortable. They are remembering times when you gave them grace without explaining what it cost you. They are remembering how often you chose understanding over confrontation. They are remembering moments when you could have become cold, but instead you stayed gentle. They are remembering the times you gave them room to figure themselves out, even while part of you may have been quietly wondering where you stood. And now they understand that your calmness was never proof that nothing affected you. Sometimes it was simply proof that you had learned how to carry emotion privately. This realization is creating a turning point inside them. There is a difference between wanting someone and feeling responsible for how carefully you handle their heart. Your soulmate is beginning to cross into the second kind of feeling. They do not merely want closeness. They are starting to understand the responsibility that comes with being allowed into your emotional world. This frightens them a little, not because they want to run, but because suddenly the connection feels more important than before. They know that if they move toward you, they cannot do it carelessly. They know that your heart is not something to enter out of boredom, loneliness, curiosity, or temporary emotion. They know there is history there. They know there are places inside you that took years to rebuild. And yet, instead of pushing them away, this truth is drawing them closer. That is what surprised them most. They expected that learning about your past might make them feel helpless. Instead, it made them feel more certain about wanting to understand you. They want to know the stories you never tell because you assume people would not understand. They want to know what made you stop asking certain people for help. They want to know which disappointments changed the way you trust. They want to know what makes you feel safe. They want to know what kind of love would allow you to finally exhale without wondering when it will disappear. But they are also afraid of asking too much too soon. So they are watching, listening, remembering. This is why something about their behavior may soon feel different to you. The change may be subtle. They may become more attentive. They may remember something you said months ago. They may ask a question with more tenderness than usual. They may hesitate before speaking because they are trying not to say something careless. They may become more protective of your dignity when others misunderstand you. They may react differently if someone speaks dismissively about you. Something inside them has shifted from simple interest into deeper emotional awareness. And there is another revelation forming beneath the surface. They have started comparing the version of you other people see with the version they are beginning to understand. Others may see confidence. They now see what it took to build it. Others may see independence. They now see the lonely seasons hidden behind it. Others may see boundaries. They now understand the experiences that made those boundaries necessary. Others may see your ability to walk away from disrespect. They now understand that you learned the hard way what happens when you stay too long in places that keep asking you to abandon yourself. This has made them protective in a way they were not before. They do not like the idea of someone misjudging you based only on what is visible. They do not like hearing people describe your strength as though it came easily. They especially do not like the thought of anyone treating your kindness as weakness. Because now they know some of the battles hidden behind that kindness. And the more they understand, the more they feel an almost instinctive need to defend the parts of you that others have misunderstood. But heaven wants you to understand something important here. You are not being shown this message so you will wait around hoping another person will rescue you. You already learned how to stand. You already survived chapters you once thought would break you. Your soulmate's emotional awakening is not the beginning of your worth. Your worth existed before they understood it. Their realization is simply a mirror reflecting something you may have forgotten. The life you carried deserves to be honored, not minimized. There were times when you told yourself it was not that serious because that was easier than admitting how much it hurt. There were times when you compared your pain to someone else's and decided you had no right to feel tired. There were times when you moved forward so quickly that you never gave yourself permission to recognize how far you had actually traveled. But the truth reaching your soulmate has also created a spiritual echo around you. It is asking you to look again at your own journey with greater compassion. You did more than survive. You rebuilt trust in life after disappointment tried to make you cynical. You learned how to dream again after seasons that taught you not to expect too much. You became softer without becoming fragile, wiser without becoming bitter, more discerning without closing your heart completely. That transformation is what your soulmate is feeling now, even if they cannot name it. And then something unexpected happened. As they sat with everything they had learned, they remembered something you once did for them. Something kind. Something you probably forgot. Maybe you encouraged them when they doubted themselves. Maybe you listened when they were overwhelmed. Maybe you offered grace after they made a mistake. Maybe you made them feel seen during a moment when they were secretly struggling. At the time, they appreciated it, but they did not understand the full meaning. Now they do. Now they realize that while you were carrying your own history, you still had enough tenderness left to care about theirs. That realization almost broke their composure. Because they began asking how someone who had been left alone in important moments could become the person who made others feel less alone. They began wondering why you gave comfort so freely when life had not always given you the same. And this is where admiration became something much more difficult for them to ignore. Their feelings deepened. Not because they suddenly decided you were flawless, but because they saw your humanity more clearly. There are contradictions inside you that fascinate them now. You can be strong and still crave reassurance. Independent and still desire partnership. Careful and still deeply romantic. Quiet and still intense. Forgiving and still unwilling to accept the same disrespect twice. Your soulmate once thought these contradictions made you mysterious. Now they realize they make perfect sense. You became layered because life required you to hold more than one truth at a time. You learned that you can forgive someone and still walk away. You learned that you can love someone and still choose yourself. You learned that you can miss something and still know returning would be wrong. You learned that strength can look like leaving, staying, speaking, or remaining silent depending on the moment. Your soulmate is beginning to see that you do not need someone who only loves the easiest version of you. You need someone capable of understanding complexity without becoming frightened by it. And this realization has quietly turned into a challenge for them. Are they capable of being that person? They have been asking themselves this. Not aloud. Not publicly. But deeply. Can they be consistent enough for someone who has already endured uncertainty? Can they communicate instead of disappearing when emotions become complicated? Can they offer reassurance without making you feel ashamed for needing it? Can they honor your independence without using it as an excuse to neglect you? Can they love you in a way that does not require you to constantly prove you are worthy of staying for? These questions are changing them. They may not have answers yet, but the fact that they are asking is significant. Because before someone chooses a deeper kind of love, they often reach a point where they must decide whether they are willing to grow into the responsibility it requires. Your soulmate is approaching that point. And something within them is saying they cannot keep relating to you the same way they did before. They cannot unknow what they know now. They cannot hear about the nights you spent alone and then casually offer you more uncertainty. They cannot understand the strength behind your silence and then punish you for not always knowing how to ask for help. They cannot recognize how much inconsistency has cost you and then pretend their own choices do not matter. This is becoming personal for them. But here is the part that may surprise you most. They are not only emotional about what happened to you. They are emotional because they are beginning to realize how close they came to misunderstanding you entirely. There were moments when they could have walked away because they misread your caution as disinterest. Moments when they interpreted your silence as emotional distance. Moments when they thought your boundaries meant you did not care. But now they see that some of those behaviors were not walls meant to keep them out. They were doors that required patience. And they are grateful they did not close the story too early. Because now they see something they nearly missed. Behind your strength is a person who still wants to be chosen without having to fight for the position. Behind your independence is a heart that would love to know what it feels like when someone stays willingly. Behind your calmness is a deep emotional world that you do not show everyone. And behind your boundaries is not coldness. It is hope with wisdom. That phrase keeps returning around this connection, hope with wisdom. You have not stopped believing in love. You have simply stopped wanting a version of love that requires you to betray yourself. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that. And once they understood it, a decision started forming. It has not been spoken yet. It may not even be completely conscious. But something is moving. They are beginning to feel that if they truly want a place in your future, they must approach you differently. More clearly. More carefully. More courageously. There is something they want to say. Something that has been building since they learned what you went through. They have rehearsed parts of it in their mind, then stopped themselves. They wonder whether saying it will make them too vulnerable. They wonder whether you will believe them. They wonder whether they have already waited too long. But the words are still there. And heaven is showing you this because the next movement in this connection will not come from the place you expect. It will come from a moment of honesty. A moment where something hidden becomes impossible to keep hidden. Your soulmate has already reached the emotional edge of that moment. They are carrying a realization about you that has become too powerful to ignore, and alongside it is a truth about their own feelings that they have been trying to understand. The two truths are about to meet. And when they do, something will be said that changes the meaning of everything that came before. Because your soulmate did not only learn what you went through alone. They learned one more thing. Something connected to the exact reason you had to face one of your hardest seasons without the person you needed most. And when they discovered who was connected to that part of your story, their entire expression changed. For a long moment, they said nothing. Then they asked one question. And the answer they received was not what they expected at all.